what about Fiji? Because I know you have your history in Fiji.
Up and down
relationship. Yeah, exactly.
And on again,
where you got
that's where you got. That's right.
Yeah, I've had a lot because, just to put this into context, my mum was one of 12 children, right? And they all married in Kiribati, so that's where I grew up. And so they married different. Some married Kiribati, some married Solomon Islanders, one married Fijian. So I have Fijian cousins. I have Solomon Island cousins. I've got cousins everywhere around the Pacific, which I'm very proud of. And so I've been going to Fiji since I was a little girl. Because to get to New Zealand, you had to come through Fiji. So, because I lived there, and so we used to come, backwards and forwards. And I do love Fiji. It is a complicated, it's like an onion. It's more complicated than Polynesia, right? Melanesia is much more complicated. You take off a onion layer and there's another one, just like the top one. And then you keep going, and there's all these layers. It's very, very complicated. So I love Fiji, but I've been there for the coup. I was there in a hostage camp when George Speight took the parliamentarians hostage, and I was inside that. I got myself inside that camp, and I was inside the camp for about 3 nights, and it was pretty dangerous. And in the end, we had to make our escape because I started to feel, I was there to report, but after a time, 2 nights, I think, it was very dangerous. And these guys tried to break in. We were in the dining room. That's where we were sleeping, the reporters. I was with the local reporters, and I was working for radio then. And these guys from the village who they weren't the guys in balaclavas and the machine guns because they're more in control. These were guys who'd come up and they were on cover, and then they knew that we were in there, and they decided to try and break in and do what they were going to do to us. So lucky the kitchen staff who were in there with us had brought in their husbands to help protect. So they put up these big, these big forms that you sit on up against the door to stop them from coming in. It got to a point that we were told that the George Speight and co were going to use the media, and they were going to execute and hostage, and we would be the witnesses. And, it's time to go. So we made this plan, and we put over, because they were watching us through the security cameras, and we put these big jackets over the security cameras so that they, in case. And then we had this quick talk, and we just said, look, we've got to get out. How we do it, we'll just walk out to it. They're not going to let us out if they think we're not coming back. So we'll just go out 2 or 3 at a time and just stagger it. And when I walked out, I went with a couple of mates, and I was, real casual. It's the best act of my life. And I said to the guy, we'll see, we're coming back. We're just going down to get some clothes. We'll see you soon, And, I remember this gun pointed at my head, and I was just keep walking, smile, keep walking. So there was that time. But then there was the coup. And in a coup, you have a dictator, right? And the dictator has a handbook. They all have it. They all have the handbook on how to be a good dictator. And one of the things they're going to do is stop the media. So they censored my local friends who are all in the media there. And then I pretty much had an idea that the people who, not normal journalists who just go up for once and then don't come back, but people like myself who go up all the time, that we were going to be on the hit list. So Michael Field, myself, he worked for AFP, myself, and Sean Dorney, who's the ABC correspondent in Australia. And we were all good mates because we are the ones who are always covering the issues, like the foreign journalists going in and covering the issues. So the first person to get deported was Mike. And he was put into a sort of a hotel room, and then he was deported. And then Sean Dorney got deported as well. And again, same sort of scenario. So 2 of them had gone. So I was like, yeah, it's just a matter of time, I think. And so also I was very I wouldn't say the word brave, but it kind of was, because we'd be in the military camp and Baini Marama would refuse to take questions. He was a military commander back then, right? Refused to take questions, and he'd be in his, and I would always yell out, ask a question, because you can't let them get away with that, even though we're in a military camp. And I always remember one of the local journalists saying to me, I'm so scared when you ask the question, because it was scary times. Like, it was real scary. They were armed soldiers. There's no rules. They were beating up journalists. They were, one journalist recently died as a result. He'd been hurt, like beaten in the camp. So they were taking people into the camp and smashing them and intimidating them, and also like any of the youth who were standing up against them, they were taken up, and you never heard from them again. They were let out, but they were, how do you put it, psychologically hurt, and they never spoke up again. Very few of them did. So we were working in those circumstances, and I was there with a cameraman and an SNG operator. There was a big satellite operator thing that we took up in those days. We don't anymore. We don't need it. But so there were 2 guys, 2 cameramen, and myself. And I went through, and I knew as soon as she put my passport in, it goes, Barbara, you've been denied entry. And so I immediately rang my boss, and I said, I had him on the call the whole time. And I said, well, what's going to happen? And she said, I'm going to send you to a detention centre. And I said, I'm going to be sent to a detention centre. And he goes, put her on the phone. And so I gave the phone. That's going to make no difference. She's just doing her job, And he was like, you've got to let, what's happening. And anyway, what happened was they took me in a car and to this place, and it wasn't a hotel, it was a detention centre. The grate, open the door, the gates open, big metal gates, and we went in, and then I was taken upstairs to these rooms, and it was horrible because the doors couldn't lock, and there's just this window in the door, but I could come out and go to there was a bathroom there, and for some reason they hadn't taken my phone off me, so I had my phone. So I rang every single person I knew. I was pretty worried, and I got a call from someone saying, we've heard that we've been debating whether to tell you, but we've been told by a military guy that they're going to come and get you tonight, so take you to the barracks. So I got myself ready. Physically, mentally, I put on my some trousers, and I put my inhaler, because I'm an asthmatic, in my pants, because I know what they do. And I waited, and every time I heard the of the door, the gate, I'd run to my window and climb up to look through the bars, and I'd see if it was a military car. And to make it worse, there was this girl in one of the other rooms, and I'd heard her talking. I assumed she was on the phone, a Korean girl, I think. And then she'd been taken off. I had not known, but she'd been taken off the plane because there was Korean Airlines came in all the time. That she was having some psychotic episodes, and so during the night when I'm lying there terrified, I heard this. She was outside my door, talking like that. Yeah. And so I had my plug. I've done a hostile environment course, and I know how to defend myself pretty well. And I had my plug, with the prongs. And I thought, if she comes in here, I'm going to attack her. Yeah, I'll make sure that nothing happens to me. So it's a horrible night. And I hadn't known, but I had rung Foreign Affairs as well. I'd rung everyone, and they had tried to get a team in to see me, and had been denied access. And that goes against the Geneva Convention. So the next morning I was still there, and I thought, this is a good sign. And they were, the people keeping me there were really nice. Fijians are lovely people, and they're very polite, and, they weren't horrible at all. And then they actually put me in the car and to take me, well, they said to the airport, but I was still scared. I'd been told. And so I'm thinking, please, God, let it be the airport. Please, God, let it be the airport. And then they drove me, and we drove into the airport, and I was, and my camera crew were waiting there, Fiji TV were waiting there, and Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade representative was waiting there, and he let rip at the guy saying, "You've breached the Geneva Convention, how dare you, we take this very seriously." And he asked me if I was okay, and I needed water. I was really thirsty, and but I was all right. And he asked me what had happened. I told him, and then this guy from Fiji Airlines came out. He was like the head guy, and he goes, "Miss Dreaver, we're going to upgrade you." And it was so sweet, and it actually nearly broke me because I was so tired. I hadn't slept all night, and got taken onto the plane like a criminal, in front of everyone. But fortunately, I was taken to the front of the plane, and I was like this. It was like that movie, is it called Argos or something like that, where they go and rescue the hostages, and they're sitting on the plane, hoping that it takes off soon. And
it's the
Ben Affleck, that one. And I kind of felt a bit like that. Even it was ridiculous. Like, it was fine. I was fine. Nothing happened to me. I'm fine. But it was all psychological.
But you'd been given
I'd been given the heads up. But I'm glad it did show that. And then I realised what it's like for people in prison, because you have that taken away from you, that right. And it was the first time, and I really freaked out. For about 10 minutes when I was in there, I thought, I can't go anywhere. I can't go to the shop. I can't. And I really and then I was like, Barbara, get yourself together. This is ridiculous. Pull yourself together. You're a strong girl. Just, come on. But it did make me have an understanding, even though it was only for a night, what the mental sort of trauma of being having your liberty taken away from you. And I'm glad I had that. I think that happened for a reason.